Hi, this is Brian Johnson. I'm the co-founder of MassDevice.com, Medical Design and Outsourcing, and Device Talks. Thanks again for downloading this episode. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Bill Carpou. He's the president and CEO of OCTANE. They're the industry council out in Orange County, California that supports the ecosystem for technology. We spent some time talking about what's going on in medical devices and med tech in the Orange County area. And speaking of Orange County, have you heard about our new Device Talks West show? On December 12th, we're bringing together some of the most interesting executives from medtech companies in and around California to discuss the state of innovation in the medical device industry, and we'll be taking a look at the new Google J&J spin-out with Verb Surgical CEO Scott Hennekens. This is our 5th year in Orange County, and we're delighted to bring this show to you. It's the last in our slate of 4 events we've done in 2016 to celebrate the 5-year anniversary of Device Talks. If you haven't been yet, I really suggest you take a look at our website at devicetalks.com and take a look at some of the interviews we've done over the past 5 years. If you like this podcast, I think you're going to like the live event. So that's all from me. I hope you enjoy this podcast, and I'd like to see you out there in Orange County on December 12th. And once again, that's Device Talks, www.devicetalks.com. Thanks. So, Bill, thanks for joining us today. Let's start with the first big development out of OCTANE, and that's the recently announced merger with the Orange County Tech Alliance. I'm curious as to how the partnership developed behind the scenes and how you see it benefiting the ecosystem in Orange County.
Yeah, Brian, first of all, thanks for having me join the call. I'm looking forward to this. The merger with OC Tech Alliance really, I was first discussed almost my first day on the job, and it was just, the timing wasn't right. As there was a lot that I needed to do in terms of getting acclimated to OCTANE. But as we thought about it further, it really began to make sense as it added a whole dimension of focus for OCTANE in the tech sector. So about 6 months ago, myself and Peter Craig, the CEO of OC Tech Alliance, began discussions again and found that there really was a lot of synergy. There were three key things that OC Tech Alliance did that OCTANE didn't, and that was advocacy for the tech community. Number 2, a high tech awards banquet, which will fit in with our conferences. And 3, executive roundtables that they were running from a functional perspective: HR, executive, sales and marketing, and I'll speak at some point here later on this discussion about our growth services operation that we're launching, and that fits perfectly in there. So the more we looked at it, it just really made sense. And there was only a 12% overlap with sponsors and partners. And as we spoke to most of them, they felt that the combined entity would be much greater and provide a much greater level of value to the Orange County tech community.
How would you say the response has been from your members and from your sort of corporate partners?
It's probably as you would anticipate. There's a tremendous amount of enthusiasm when they first hear about it, and then the practicality is, okay, so now what's it mean for me?
Right.
And so we've gone through that initial high that everybody's on, and now we're meeting individually, and especially with the companies where there's overlap, and explaining what the value of the two organizations are. I'd say clearly all of those discussions are going really well. People understand it, they're supportive of it, and they're backing what this is as a movement into a further footprint of tech in Orange County.
So Orange County is, I wouldn't say it's nationally renowned like a Silicon Valley or a medical alley or like innovation districts here in Boston, but it is an incredibly fertile tech ecosystem. Why do you think that is? Why don't you think people think Orange County immediately as this tech hotspot?
Well, hopefully your perception, which is 100% accurate, will change over the next couple of years. However, you're right, and I think part of it really was the I don't know if dysfunctionality is the right word, but just the fact that the ecosystem really wasn't working as well together as it was and it has been in some of those other areas. I would say over the past year, all the different organizations that make up this industry that we're in have really worked well together. There's been a high degree of collaboration, and none of that really existed before. So, I think we've upped our game. Others have entered the fray. We've got good support, and frankly, we have been a little bit below the radar. Now, that's probably a good thing too. So, in many cases, we've been able to build these companies, facilitate them and move them on. However, one of the key focuses of OCTANE over the next several years is really to retain these companies and build a national prominence, a national presence that we're recognized for both tech and med tech.
Right. I mean, do you feel like it's more known as a med tech community than a technology community in general? Or, I mean, there's a lot of amazing companies that have sprang out of there.
Yeah, it's again, an interesting comment is that most people will look at us and say, well, you're really known for life sciences or med tech. And when you really look at it and look at our partnerships, our sponsors, and the number of companies that come through Launchpad, which is our accelerator, it's only slightly more than 50% that are med tech. It's about 56-57%. The rest are tech. I think obviously we're known. You mentioned Boston, you mentioned Minneapolis. I mean, we're known in that realm as a medical device type of a community, and really unbeknownst to me in accepting this job, from an ophthalmology perspective, Orange County is the epicenter of innovation really in the world for ophthalmology.
Right.
Now, on tech, we're seeing a resurgence in things like artificial intelligence, AR, VR, and we're seeing a pattern that clearly we believe from a content perspective, Orange County could represent for AR, VR what it does for ophthalmology over the next 2 to 3 years.
Wow. Yeah, I've always thought of it as kind of it's a hearts and eyes community, so heart valves and ophthalmology, of course, because of Edwards and Allergan, and I think all the other companies that have sprang out of those big anchor companies. So you joined OCTANE 18 months ago. What was your experience in Orange County? Did you live there prior to taking this position?
Yeah, I've lived in Orange County since 1998. I moved out with a large company at the time to run their West Coast, and led them through an acquisition, and then I was in private equity. I was traveling quite a bit, but maintained my residence here in Orange County. I was an operating partner at Blackstone, and joined OCTANE. I mean, I knew some people on the board. I knew Matthew, the previous CEO, and as he was moving on, it just really felt like a very logical fit. I felt it was a point in time here where my experience and my expertise I could lend back to the early stage and startup community, and I could tell you I've been thrilled with the past year. I've had a great time personally, and it's been very satisfying in terms of what we've been able to accomplish. And we've really transformed the organization, I'd say, in a pretty substantial way.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that while we're on it. So, I mean, tell me about 18 months ago and where OCTANE is today.
Yeah, and clearly, the starting point, I mean, looking at this and the way the organization was run and it was led by Matthew, was the organization was in great shape. So, financially and fiscally and with their membership and sponsorship. And, what was really clear was we needed to redefine a value proposition, redefine what our mission was and what our contribution was going to be to Orange County. I think I put a bit more of the private equity mentality that required us to perform and required us to provide value back versus just being a nonprofit that we were, asking for an annual contribution of some sort and going on with some overall broad mission versus specific. So what we've done is we've really created 4 groups inside of OCTANE. And the first is OCTANE Connect. It's really the legacy organization. It's where all of our conferences, our summits, our annual partner sponsor member model is, as well as our community engagement. So it's the legacy of OCTANE, and we've continued to scale that and grow that in terms of the technology conference, the medical device conference, and our ophthalmology conference, which is relatively new and building rapidly each year. The second portion is OCTANE Launchpad, which is our accelerator, and that again, we've seen a tremendous uptick since 2010 through the end of 2015. We ran 221 companies through our accelerator. 208 companies received capital or received funding, which is an incredible percentage, to the tune of slightly over $1.2 billion.
Wow.
So we're proud of those accomplishments. Subsequent, we're announcing on the morning of our Medical Device Investor Forum this year, October 27th, OCTANE Growth Services. And that will be a continuation of where Launchpad has historically left off. So once we help companies get funded, OCTANE Growth Services will enable companies to scale, grow, and reach a liquidity event. So we intend to stay with companies from early stage development on through to a liquidity event. And then the fourth leg of the stool, of a 4-legged stool, would be OCTANE Capital, where we actually have raised. We're still doing the raise, but we're in the middle of it with an ophthalmology-focused, no pun intended on the word there,
right,
investment fund, where we're making investments in actually later stage ophthalmology companies, more in a CDE round. And we had our first close in April, and we've subsequently made 3 investments since then through today.
That's terrific. So you're actually making much later investments in companies.
Yeah, and with our own money, we're making much later investments, and part of this formula with the ophthalmology fund, which by the way, our plan is to repeat this in other verticals inside of medical technology. So that could be cardio, neuro, orthopedic, aesthetics. We're looking at all of those right now. But the fund itself is very key opinion leader centric. We have 30 of the leading ophthalmologists in the country that are KOLs. They provide the fund deal flow in companies that they're familiar with doing clinical trial. We then utilize the OCTANE Launchpad Accelerator as part of the due diligence process. And then we have an investment committee. So while we do have a managing director of the fund, we have an investment committee that makes the investment decision. So, to the extent that we could increase the or decrease the risk profile and increase the chances of a great return, we think we've done that with this particular fund.
Well, it seems like a very comprehensive way in which you're helping companies, not only develop roots but grow them deep into the area there. So that's a very exciting development.
Yeah, and some of the bigger ophthalmology companies now, we actually have meetings later this week in terms of them potentially making an investment in the fund, because this helps fuel some of the pipeline for potential acquisitions that they would want to see. So again, as the model continues to be refined, we every rock we turn over, there's a great surprise on the other side on this in terms of acceptance, and it looks like it could just be rolled into any other vertical. So whether we look at a Medtronic to help us from a neuro perspective, or certainly Edwards from a cardio, this potentially has the opportunity to scale into other funds.
That's terrific. So that's getting launched at the Medical Device Investor Forum, which is in forgive me on the dates. It's the week of October 24th, later on in the week. That's in its
Yeah, it's the 27th and 28th, and what's getting launched actually is growth services. The fund itself has already been launched, but the growth services, which will sustain company performance and scale, will be launched that morning and at MDIF.
Great. So let's talk about MDIF while we're on that on the 27th to 28th of this month. It's in its 11th year. I mean, it's your signature program catering to that massive med tech, generally speaking, med tech sector in the Orange County. I've been to it for the past 5 years. I got to say, I've always enjoyed it. I've done the massive group meditation they had a couple years ago. So
I heard about that. I wasn't here yet, but I heard about that one.
Yeah. Saw Warren Moon last year. I've seen some great programming there. I mean, I remember Mike Masalam interviewing a patient, two patients, an elderly woman and a young boy. I have to say it's one of my favorite programs in the MedTech calendar just because of the unique programming. How have you strived to make this your own, and how is this event different than years past?
Well, it follows much of the same format, but if I just touch on some of the content, one of the keynotes is will be by Allergan, speaking specifically about Allergan's economic impact on Orange County, which is rather significant. I saw a presentation on this just 2 weeks ago. And then we're going to have a panel on utilizing big data to improve patient outcomes and reimbursement. We're joined again by Mike Musalam, who will be interviewed by Jim Mazo. Jim is the new global president of ophthalmology for Carl Zeiss. We've got a series of companies that'll discuss successful exit strategies. So we want to be able to work with the entrepreneur and help them prepare for that. We'll have a panel on medical device security, which is a hot topic right now.
Absolutely.
Medtronic will talk about integration of acquisitions. I mean, they've been on a tear with some of those recently. Another panel sponsored by Icon out of Boston will be on FDA regulatory trends. And then on the second day, we'll really talk more about raising capital. So we'll have launchpad companies present, but we'll talk about non-traditional methods such as the rise of the family office in terms of funding, crowdfunding, high net worth, things that are alternative to venture. And we'll actually start the second day with an election update from Jeff Kimball, who's the president of Kimball Associates. He's on our board, and it'll be a non-political discussion, but it will talk about the future of healthcare. If in fact Hillary wins or Trump wins,
right.
and obviously that outcome will be fairly significant in difference, and I think that'll be a very cool opening keynote on the second day.
Yeah, those are fun. I've seen him do that a few times. It's a good time.
Yeah, and overall we expect close to 800 people. I mean, that's about the number that feels right. We could take it up a little bit, but I think we've been more conscious in building improved content and starting to do some alternative tracks. So one of the other things that we'll have this year is we'll introduce some smaller breakouts that will run concurrent with a big panel. Maybe for 30, 40, at the most 50 people. And we're going to start testing that out because we think that's a model in future years could help scale the event for us. The other thing, just from a future perspective, is we've already locked all our dates in for 2017, both for technology and medical device, as well as ophthalmology. And that's something very rare for us because generally we have not locked in dates until 6 months before. So it really gives us the opportunity right now to work on content, speakers, and marketing the conference itself.
Yeah, that's terrific. I mean, we've been doing the same with Device Talks, and it's amazing how sort of looking farther out allows you to be a better event planner. So that sounds great. About 800 people, and I think the OCTANE's been working for at least 5 years now to expand the geographic reach of the companies. When I go, I see a lot of people from Boston. I see people from Minnesota. It's not just a regional show, right? I mean, this is this is in Orange County, but you're drawing from all over the country.
Yeah, it's not, Brian, and I think that's one of the things that we really found is that for us to draw a more national audience, we need to be in front of it a whole lot more. If we're only going to start marketing at 60 or 75 days prior to the conference, we're going to be pretty regulated to the Southern California area. So it seems the further out ahead, we're getting participation elsewhere, and we really want that because we think there's great investment opportunities here. And as a matter of fact, I spent a day and a half in Boston 2 months ago speaking with different investors about making investments in Orange County-based companies and giving them some of the success metrics that have come out of Launchpad. And all of them were excited. So we want to utilize this conference as a continued draw to bring specifically investors into the area, but really anyone from that standpoint, that's associated with medical device, entrepreneurs, people that are looking to start a business. We think this is a great place to be able to do that.
Yeah, it really is a fertile area for medical device startups and early stage companies. I mean, I'm always amazed when I look back at our attendee list from years past on our own Orange County events, how many of those companies who I didn't recognize the name initially have turned out to be really big, heavy hitter companies who sold or had liquidity events that were in the hundreds of millions to billions. And it's just it's amazing to me how almost under the radar the region is when you consider how much buying power is, so to speak, is in there for medtech. It's an amazing community.
Yeah, and going back to the introduction of growth services that we'll be making, part of that is not only to help these companies grow, but it's to retain them here. And one of the things that we did see was companies would be funded, and then they'd go to another area of the country. Right. So we've had an enormous amount of successful companies that have stayed here. We've also been the creator of companies that have ended up leaving the area. We want them to stay here, and we've. Just something I ran across last week was a company that's going to go through Launchpad. The company was started by an Allergan sales individual, and 4 years ago she made the determination that if she was going to do this, and she was in Texas, but by the way, selling in Dallas, and grew up there in Texas, and made the decision that if she's going to start this business, she needs to be in Orange County. So we're starting to see an influx of people actually coming here and saying, if I'm going to start something in medical device, this is one of the prime areas I need to start it. And hey, I'm from the East Coast. I love Boston. I've had great experiences in Minneapolis, but I'd stack Orange County and the weather up against either of those places and say this is this is a place that I'd want to start a business if I were elsewhere in the country.
Yeah, I'd say that is an inherent advantage in a lot of respects. It's also, I think, to be fair, it is an area that does have some drawbacks just in terms of housing and things like that, right? I mean, I've heard some complaints about, because it is so successful, that the cost of living can be a little bit higher, but the access to mentors must be immense there.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the access is great, and it's kind of interesting because it's all relative, and I think you're right. Relative to many other areas of the country, the cost of living is higher here. But sometimes we have the comparison between us and Silicon Valley, and it's amazing how much less expensive Orange County is than Silicon Valley.
Well, that's true. That's exactly true. And I'm speaking to you from Boston, which is not a cheap place to live by any stretch. So.
Yeah, exactly. Boston, New York, Chicago. I mean, none of those areas are inexpensive either. So. And
you get to go swimming in January in the ocean. So.
always a positive. That's for sure.
Advantage, you guys.
Yeah. Although we don't have the Red Sox or the Patriots, but we do finally have a football team again in the Rams. So.
That's great. So I always like to ask some folks that are in the know, like, what are the unique things about doing business in the OC? I think when you go to like Minneapolis, you find that they like to do breakfast meetings and what are some of the sort of peculiarities or inside tips that you can provide, if any?
I'd look at it and I'd umbrella it by almost saying there's an absolute passion by everybody that's involved in this innovation economy as part of that technology ecosystem in Orange County to really make Orange County the place to do business. So it's not any specific event. I think it's a matter of collaborating with a lot of the different organizations. There are a lot of I'd say breakfast meetings for whatever reason are just not on the map here to the extent that they are in other areas of the country. It's more kind of an after-hour type of a thing, an evening event, an early evening event. But there's a lot of crossover between industry, between investors, and between the entrepreneurial community. And I would just say that the support of the overall business community to drive this and make sure that we are not, as we kind of open this discussion, under the radar, but really up there at the top. That's something we all work towards. So I just think it's the support structure that anybody would find here is pretty phenomenal.
Terrific. So let's quickly make sure everybody knows how to register for the Medical Device Investor Forum on October 27th and 28th. Where do they need to go?
You can go on our website, which is octaneoc.org, or just MDIF 2017, and that'll take you right to the link. And we still we're pretty full with sponsors and content, and we're just building the registration right now. So we'd love to build that. Certainly to the 800 number and beyond. So we welcome any and all attendees, and we think it'll be a great event and great content and great educational experience for everyone.
Great, and I personally vouch for the conference. I've been there, like I said, 5 years in a row. It's a fantastic time. So I hope all our listeners go out there and check it out. Well, Bill, thank you so much for taking the time today, and I look forward to seeing you out west.
Yeah, Brian, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you also, and appreciate the time and opportunity to really discuss some of the changes we've made at OCTANE and where we're headed.
My pleasure. Thank you.